Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about The Handmaid's Tale, Season 3, Episode 4. It's called God Bless the Child. So, full spoilers for the episode as always, and we should mention that this is brought to you by one of our patrons. This is brought to you by Cindy Palacios, so thanks to her. So, by the way, see the weird thing about getting 3 episodes in the first week is that I'm like, episode 4 we're on, like, wait, what? When did that happen?
Yeah, I like, because we took a little bit of a break between 2 and 3. So it's just like, okay, there was no time in between those whatsoever.
No. I mean, it'll be normal now, but it was going to feel really very slow compared to the first 4.
This has felt like a Netflix show up until this point in the pace that we're going at. And then all of a sudden it grinds to a halt after this every year.
The funny thing is, though, is I think this one works better weekly because it's so intense. Typically, with its
you don't like binging it because it's feels a bit exhausting. It's a bit hard to binge.
Yeah, it's exhausting. Yeah, I feel like one serving per week is kind of perfect for this show, but they like to throw 3 at us in the first week, which for us ends up being 4 over the course of a week. That's what it feels like. It feels like by the time we get the 3rd one done, the 4th one's there, ready to go. So yeah, episode 4. We actually, it's something of a bottle episode as far as June's side of the plot is concerned in Gilead. She's at like the ceremony celebrating the children that have been born recently.
It's a not quite baptism.
Yeah, it's basically Gilead's version of a baptism.
They did have a name for it, but I'm forgetting it.
Yes, but because it intercuts with some flashbacks of her child's baptism, of Hannah's baptism.
You forgot the kid's name, didn't you? For
a split second, I did. All right, it came back to me very quickly. All right. Do I know how I remembered it? Because I remember she said Hannah Banana. That's how I remembered it.
That's how you remember it. Christ.
She calls her Hannah Banana. So there's a little bit of that, and it's not too much because what we were speculating if there would be flashbacks this year, and there was some flashbacks in this episode, but there weren't much. It was a little bit at the start and the end.
I think I alluded to it at the end of the last episode. I'm glad there's not too much. Not that I dislike the flashbacks, more that I don't want them to become a crutch.
Sure.
So I'm happy with them just being, when they feel appropriate here or there.
Yeah, because this one, it was literally just the start at the end. It was just kind of intercutting the baptism of the flashback with the celebration in present day, and it was it didn't feel the need to go out of its way to make more of a plot out of the flashbacks where it had like a beginning, middle, and end. It was just kind of clear and simple.
It was just showing the parallels, and that's it. Yeah. Whereas in previous seasons, the flashbacks have had their own arc.
Yeah, which is fine if it's relevant to what the character's going through.
Yeah, absolutely.
Moira pretty funny though, as always, because we don't get any Moira in present day in this episode, but Moira in the church was pretty funny.
She was.
I'll just throw that out there. But they go back to the Putnam's house, and this was the baby that Janine had. All the way back, end of season 1. She almost jumped off the bridge. It was that long ago, and I thought it was odd that they were inviting Janine included. Like, okay, you want to invite the rest of the handmaids in the neighborhood, sure. That felt a bit odd to me. Which I guess feeds into them wanting to be, forgiving, and not that Gilead as a whole is pretty forgiving in general.
No, but they have a pretense of being forgiving.
Yes, they have a pretense of it. So they come in, and the key interesting thing is here, right? Other than Janine's scene later on, of course, where June steps in, is and a couple of things with Aunt Lydia, where the handmaids seem to kind of, at least June and Janine seem to kind of care about her a little bit. Like, they seem to care that she's not in a great place, that she's struggling. Janine brings her tea at one point. But the big thing for me, though, was by far the scenes where June's with Serena or June's with Fred. Those scenes really make up the bulk of what this episode is really about. And it's kind of following up from what we were saying last episode about her starting to actually be a leader, start to actually fight in some way. And she has this scene with because Serena's not at the celebration. She didn't want to be a distraction, but she shows up
for the
aftermath, and June's kind of lingering behind. All the rest of the handmaids have went to get some food, and she kind of like lingers and sort of stares at Fred, because one of the narration earlier on is she's like, I should hate this man, but that's not exactly what I feel. Like I can't, I don't know what to call it, but it's not quite hatred.
No, because Fred basically goes, "Hey, all of you, go to the buffet." No,
that's later.
Was that later one?
That's later when he goes into the kitchen. Yeah, that's when he wants to speak to June. This was back when they're at the celebration still. She's having this narration.
I'm with you.
So that's just that. But Serena's there, and they have this kind of conversation. And again, we talk about this all the time, but I'm still surprised when we have a scene with those two now, and the demeanor and the way they speak to each other is so different.
It's borderline casual.
Yeah, the way Serena asks if I missed anything, and June cracks a joke. She's like, the usual beer keg, karaoke.
Yeah.
And
she's Serena's one of the girls now.
Yeah, like June like cracks a little smile at the end, and Serena I don't think actually sort of takes it and laughs at the joke, but and maybe that's something we can get to some point later in the season, where maybe Serena will actually get in on a joke of some kind and respond.
It won't be her responding; it'll be her telling one. It'll be her making the joke.
I can see that. Yeah, she'll make a joke. Yeah, I can see that. Which would contrast nicely if you remember back early last season, because June was pregnant.
Yeah.
And they had like a little dinner party for a few of the handmaids, like June's, Offred's friends. And
yes.
you remember she was going around and like serving them, and it was maybe this nice thing because she was pregnant.
And it was so awkward whenever she was in the room.
Yeah, but she tried to talk to them about things, and they ended up talking about like coffee shops they used to go to and things they used to do when they had freedom. And I can almost see it being a nice contrast to that if she does finally crack a joke, because it's like she said things like that in that dinner party scene, but it was really awkward and like stilted.
Yeah, but now it would feel genuine, I think.
Yeah.
Given where they actually are.
So, yeah, and June gives her a bit of a pep talk. It's like, you keep fighting, and she's like, yeah, but half of these women when I tried to fight like walked out on me, and she's like, yeah, but half didn't. You have followers. So we have this scene, like you said, where Waterford comes in, and he says, "Everyone, go get some deviled eggs."
Yeah. Go enjoy the buffet.
I actually thought he was a little bit drunk here at first, because the way he was talking and swinging his arms about felt a little intoxicated. But he gets rid of them all, and maybe he wants to appear drunk for the purpose of this, because June stays behind.
Yeah, she immediately knows what's going on.
Yeah, and he sits down next to her, and he gets a drink of water with her, and they're sitting down, and they start having kind of catching up essentially.
I think even before they get to that point, given that we know he's been demoted and he's lost some standing, there's a point where she goes, "Oh, we're not allowed to use the buffet," and he's like, I'll deal with the consequences. So he still feels like I don't know if it's ego or if it's genuine, but he feels like he has enough power still to get away with at least some things.
Yeah. Actually, because the exact phrasing which I liked was, I'll handle the complaints. As if there would be like an inbox of angry complaints. That was the one, I like that. But, she starts asking about Serena, and he's like, oh, she's not been very forthcoming. I wish I knew. I want things to be back the way they were. And June says something that I thought sounded quite ballsy, given the context of the relationship. She says, "What does your wife want?" And I thought that might set him off, but it didn't. He was kind of very honest in his answer, where he just kind of says, "I have no idea. She's not telling me." And she plants this suggestion that what would because he says, "Oh, like knitting and planting flowers and whatnot that isn't satisfying her." And June says, "I don't think it ever was. Here's something that might fulfill her and keep her like active, give her mind something to focus on, as if she actually had some power." And he gives her this look, and she's like, I mean, behind the scenes, of course, that no one can know, but give her something to do where she can actually exercise her brain, essentially.
At least let her feel useful.
Yeah. And then she sort of takes a drink and slyly goes, "It's worth having a conversation about anyway." And he's just kind of staring at her, and he's like, and I'm just like, and all I can think in this scene is not only, I mean, I do think she genuinely would like Serena to have more power, but again, I'm thinking about her wanting allies that have power, her wanting people in places.
Absolutely, and because she has the same conversation with Serena, essentially.
Yeah, she goes and finds her like right after and says, "Hey, I had a talk with your husband."
Go get, you're going to get some power, And she was, I mean, I get power up to a point, and she's like, well, move the point, push it out further till you get more.
Yeah. It's a really well done scene, and I think Serena is very like tempted here because later on in the episode she does kind of walk back a little bit after the incident with Janine. Yes. She steps back a little bit and says, "Hey, we have these procedures in place. This is why we don't question things. This is why this is the right thing to do." And she does obviously add on the final point where she says, do you regret not leaving here? Or she said that earlier, and just says, no, not without Hannah, never without Hannah. And at the end of that scene, even though she's kind of like doing the company line again, right? She's like, no, this is why things are the way they are. She's like, oh, by the way, someone Hannah's age in that neighborhood would go to this school, and they play at this time, and there'll just be a gate between you and her if you ever had to find her. And it's like really specific information. This is like the most genuinely helpful she's ever been.
This is, hey, if you need to see her, lunchtime, here's where the school is.
If you can get there, if for some reason you can wrangle your way there, and it was a really sweet moment. But like I think Serena, like, and she was kind of feeling this. Of course, we were talking emotionally last season about her making a big choice at the end of the season where she did eventually give up the baby and say, hey, take Nicole to Canada. I feel like right now she is tempted by everything June's trying to convince her of. She's teetering.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Just needs a little push.
It's like gravity. You just need a little push,
Yeah. I still think the single most amazing thing this show has done
is made me sympathize with Serena.
At this point where we're kind of like, yeah, go on, work with June. Let's do this.
Yeah, I know.
When she was terrible.
She was awful. Like I remember at the end of season 1, she paraded Hannah out in front of. And she went up and talked to Hannah where June could see it, but June couldn't do anything about it. And then, because I remember she drops a C-bomb on her right after that scene, and she's crying her eyes out. And I remember just hating Serena so much in that scene.
She was utterly despicable, and in some ways she was worse than the men because at least the men actually had the power, so they were doing what was expected. Serena was doing this just so that she had a feeling of power over June, right? It was that hierarchy.
I mean, I think debating which one's worse is a conversation that
worse in the sense of at least the men are in the they know their position, right? They're getting what they can. They're at the top of the chain. No, bear with me here. They're at the top of the chain, so they feel like we already hate them because of course they're awful, right? Whereas Serena is more complicated because we're like, oh, she should be on our side, she should be helping out more, but she's actually doing these atrocious things.
Oh, she's more complicated. I agree with that. I just don't know if the word worse is the right word to be using.
No. It's not that her acts are individually worse. It's that they feel worse to us because she's more complicated.
Okay. I think picking that word was just a pit that you didn't have to go into and explain yourself from. But
it was fine. It made perfect sense.
No, she's been a fascinating character. One that I don't necessarily, because I think at the start of the show she was just kind of like almost two-dimensional, and she's just this evil. She's just this villainous. And over the course of the show, it's done this thing where she's kind of like leaning towards better, but then no, she's the worst thing ever again. She just when you think she's getting better.
I remember that in season 2. There was a point where we were like, is she kind of getting redeemed? And then the next episode is like, nope, she's irredeemable. She's the worst. She's terrible.
Yeah.
And then here we are now going, this is complicated.
Yeah, super complicated. And I guess like one of the things that you could say is that, and why it's so important to go through this arc with Serena, is the idea that someone can get better, someone can be redeemed, someone can realize they've made mistakes and work towards something. They can have that realization.
Even when they are a terrible person.
Yeah. And in Serena's case, arguably very delusional, which is why she's in the pickle she's in. But yeah, so no, that was really well done. And obviously the same with Janine herself. Janine goes up and asks to hold the baby, which Mrs. Putnam actually agrees to, and there's
a bit of tension, isn't there, in the room before she even hands her over, because they all remember last time Janine had a baby.
Yeah, well, that baby.
Well, yeah, but I mean, was holding her.
Yeah, and she gives the baby back. It goes off without a hitch, And then she starts offering, oh, hey, why don't I come back here and we'll try and give her a little brother or sister? Which apparently you just don't do. You just don't do that apparently in Gilead.
No, and Aunt Lydia freaks out, and Janine's like, "What? I'm just doing what you trade me to do."
Actually, as soon as Janine starts walking towards the baby the first time, she pulls out her cattle prod. She's got it ready.
Oh, she's waiting.
She's waiting to use that cattle prod. Which I think is into like Aunt Lydia's thing, where she clearly feels like she's weak and she has to assert her strength, but she feels like she's just putting on a show, and that's why she's got a big cattle prod and she's ready to whip it out. She feels vulnerable, I guess is what I'm saying. She feels vulnerable after what happened to her. But at the same time, it's a nice complex feeling for us because she kind of deserved. Like, I don't think anyone watching this show was like, Emily, you've went too far. How dare you hit her Aunt Lydia? That sweet old lady. You know, like, that's not who Aunt Lydia is.
It's so conflicting because obviously Janine was really genuine with Aunt Lydia earlier. Like, right, you know, brought the tea and was saying, "Oh, we prayed." You know, Aunt Lydia's like, "Ah, come on, I know what you all think of me. I know, you know." She obviously thinks she's doing the right thing. Like, obviously, she believes what she's doing, but she knows the effect she has on them.
Which is why I wonder if the idea of Janine doing this, or more specifically the idea of Emily doing what she did to her, is like, does she take that failure kind of personally? Does she feel like, are they all going mad and crazy because of something she's doing, because she's not performing right? And maybe that adds into the overall theme of the show of, like, Aunt Lydia has always seemed like someone who takes what she does seriously. She likes her position. She actually believes she's doing the right thing by, you know, training these girls to be handmaids.
Oh, she absolutely does.
Right?
There's no doubt about that. Yeah.
Right. She believes all this, but is this just another example of, dare I say, the patriarchy, to use that word, like, of like giving her this false pretense, and she believes it so thoroughly that, you know, the second something's going wrong, she blames it on herself for her not doing her job properly, when really the entire system's the problem, and that's why things are falling apart, because no human should be treated like the way these handmaids are being treated. But she doesn't see it that way. She thinks she's supposed to be doing that, and she sees herself as failing because of it. And I think that's
Aunt Lydia is surprisingly interesting, isn't she?
I mean, to be fair, most of the characters are. Like, I feel like, but at this point in the show, there's very few of the main characters that aren't fascinating and layered.
No, I am with you.
But yeah, so she starts shocking the shit out of Janine, and then eventually just starts whacking her. Yeah, she shocks her a couple of times and then just starts hitting her with it like a bat. And again, June, again being more confident than we've seen her in the past, swoops in, puts herself over Janine's body and says, "Stop it," and like says it really affirmatively, like, "No, you stop this right now." And no one, like, you know, pulls June away and like says, you know, you're out of line. No one does anything like that. Everyone just kind of standing around, because hell, Lydia gets up and is like, "Oh, I apologize, everyone," and she walks out.
Honestly, I think Janine hit a nerve when she said, "No, I'm just doing what you trained me to do, right? Have kids." I think that struck a nerve with all of them in the room, where they're like, "Yeah, she's being uncomfortable to watch, but she's not necessarily doing anything wrong, in the sense of, you know, she's doing what a handmaid should, right?"
Yeah.
In that regard, is she's like, "Yeah, go on then, let's have kids," which is kind of their whole purpose, right? Beyond, you know, the actual the intricacies of the system in setting them into which households, yada yada yada, but just the core idea, she's completely indoctrinated into.
Yeah.
So
She's been broken by the system.
absolutely.
And arguably so is Aunt Lydia, just in a different way. And in a way where she thinks she's powerful. Same way with Serena, where she thought she was powerful.
Yeah.
And if anything, Serena, deep down knowing she wasn't, was always chasing it. And that's why she was who she was to June and other characters. So, like...
But up until her injury, Aunt Lydia has seemed relatively satisfied with her position in life.
Which is why I think, like, the injury, it's not the fact that she got hurt specifically. I think it's the fact that one of her girls revolted against her.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
And she feels that she's let herself down. She's let the like Gilead down. And you would see her crying alone after this. And I think she's crying because after she does this to Janine, like, is she worried that she's just done this again? Like, she's made another monster, you know, in her eyes.
I don't know about that. I think it's more because I don't think she's worried that she's broken Janine, you know, made Janine a monster or anything like that. Maybe Hannah, not June.
Yes.
Yeah. No, but maybe June, but I don't know about Janine, because you know, Janine is so broken, right? And she's completely indoctrinated in it. I think it's more just that everyone else's reaction. No one stopped June getting in the way, right?
Mm.
No one, no one moved to go to defend her, to defend Aunt Lydia in her actions. There was maybe a feeling in the room that she'd gone too far in beating her this much. Like it was, getting to be just a personal satisfaction thing rather than what she actually needed to be doing. And I think that, because she is such a believer in what she does, I think that's what hit her more than anything. The idea that, well, hang on, was she in the wrong?
Yeah, I think as well, it's another example of June becoming a bit of a leader because she cares about the others and she goes in to protect Janine. It's another
Mm.
example of her stepping up in that way.
Yeah, and she's
Which,
got a rival handmaid now to kind of have some arguments with.
oh yeah, the one who's much more obedient in pro Gilead.
Yeah,
Maybe,
was she in
maybe,
the one in the shop a couple episodes ago?
um,
The walking partner?
yeah, she was a
I
walking
can't
partner.
remember.
Yeah,
Yeah, walking partner. Yeah, I was
same
just double
handmaid.
checking it was the same one.
Um, I mean, maybe pro's the wrong word, but she's deeply into it. She obeys the rules. She's like, no, we shouldn't do this. We shouldn't do that. We shouldn't talk about this.
Yeah,
They can't talk around her, kind of thing. Which actually, Joe,
I
is
feel
funny.
she's going to kind of betray them at some point by more
Yeah.
or give some information to the officials that the others didn't realize she had.
Here's the thing, though. It's funny that there was a Breaking Bad reference a couple episodes ago because I actually think this show has become more like Breaking Bad. Just in the sense that June is trying to become like the boss, like the in the underground. Like it's reminded me a lot, and it's not so much that I don't think it will necessarily go the same way of Breaking Bad, where there's kind of a turn where you realize you're rooting for the villain. Certainly, I can see her getting dark because it has to get dark in a war,
Yeah,
right?
if they can make me root for the villains over her, then this
Yeah.
show has either massively failed
Well, I never said
or
rooting for the villains. That's different.
no. I'm saying you said you can't see it doing that,
Yeah.
right? I'm saying if we did end up at that point, then the show has either massively failed or this is way more complex and better written than even I thought right now.
But I wasn't implying you'd be rooting for the villains.
You just said, no. I'm just saying. I was going off the comment you just said. Oh, I'm not saying, that you would be. I'm saying if they ever got to that stage.
Yeah, but what? Yeah, but I never implied they would. Like, you didn't even do that in Breaking Bad. You didn't root for the villains in Breaking Bad either.
No, but well, most people go to a point where they've rooted against him.
You rooted against them, but there were still villains that you didn't root for. You rooted
Sure.
you rooted for the authorities, but they were never the villains.
Well, no, they're not.
Very different. But just in the sense where, like, there was a point in Breaking Bad early on, right, where he's just a chemistry teacher who wants to cook meth and sell it for a quick buck, and it slowly becomes a thing where he's meeting more mob bosses and building a network, and all of a sudden he's Heisenberg, right? I won't say any more because I don't want to get spoilers.
Yeah.
That's just the
And
premise
that
of the show.
point is different on depending on who you ask.
Sure, yeah. But I get this feeling like with June slowly building this and talking in Serena's ear and trying to manipulate, not in a bad way, but just trying to make inspire her to do this. It's almost going to be an uplifting version of Breaking Bad in a way where she kind of builds this army under the surface, and I don't know. It's interesting. Where we'll get to a point maybe in season 5 of this show where we turn around and go, June's actually pretty powerful now. Like when did this happen? We'll sort of like stop and go, that's I didn't realize she got into this point yet.
Yeah, especially given I think this season is clearly the pivot point into that direction. Should we go in that route? Should we commit to her becoming more powerful? Because 1 and 2, she was just broken,
Oh
especially
yeah.
1.
Yeah, well, that's one of my favorite things about like the performance from Moss is that her reactions now are different from her reactions to very similar things from previous seasons. Instead of being terrified about things, she's like, she'll bite her tongue and not say something in a lot of situations, but she has no problem giving the eyes. Like she has no problem looking like she's pissed about what's going on or looking like she's.
Oh, absolutely. And there's still a lot of the same. There's still that constant that look of determination. Whereas before it was just a determination to survive, to try and get through the moment. And,
Yeah.
Whereas now it's a determination to, okay, no, I know what I'm going to do. I'm
It's
going
the
to
long
fight.
game. No, it's about the long game and eventually
Yeah.
winning. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And the performance really sells that. So really good, really good. And then the final sort of stuff with them is they're all leaving at the end of the night, and some of the watchers. Okay, I know I have to speak to Mother Waterford, and June kind of stumbles around the corner, and I thought she was going to get in trouble. But then the guy's like, "Is this your handmaid?" Like, well, it used to be. Well, yes, we try to identify him. Come here. And it's like, they've got a tablet, and there's footage, and it's like a protest going on in Canada, saying we stand with you, Chicago, because we've heard there's fighting on in Chicago. There's a resistance in Chicago, and Luke's there, holding the coal, and it's kind of this really like June has to kind of fight back her emotions as she's like answering these questions of like, is this him? Yes, is basically the question.
Yeah, there's no point in lying.
Yeah, no point in lying because I have to wonder like what do they think they can do with him being in Canada exactly?
I don't think they can do anything. I think they're more trying. I mean, assumption. I think they're trying to implicate her in the escape.
Sure.
With, hey, Emily went to Canada with that baby and went straight to your husband with the child. Isn't that a bit suspicious? Now,
Yeah.
obviously, Emily knew it was June's kid, so maybe she can wiggle her way out of it that way.
Mm.
But I think that's what they're aiming at is, hey, isn't this suspicious? And trying to get her kind of implicated in the escape.
Yeah, but for me, what this scene was really though, because she eventually walks away, and as soon as she gets round the corner, she just breaks down and starts crying, but out of happiness. Like she's smiling and she's crying because as much as she knows Luke's in Canada, as much as she's heard about this before, this is the first time she's actually seen him in any way.
Yeah, and she's saying, "Oh no, the baby's safe."
Yeah, like they're both safe. They're together. They're. I mean, happy's maybe the right term because they're obviously protesting for all these reasons, but they're in a much better place than her. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a really powerful moment, and I think in the context of the episode, it's kind of like she's so determined, she's thinking of the long game, and it's like she gets a glimpse of the prize. She gets a glimpse of what they're going to get should she be victorious eventually. This is who she'll get to see again. This is who she'll get to see and her new daughter. Like this is a like the light of the. It's still a long tunnel, but she can kind of see the light in the distance.
Yeah. No, I'm with you.
Or at least she accepts that the light's there. Maybe is a better way of phrasing it, as opposed to seeing it. But
yeah,
she knows it's there, and it's kind of a sweet moment. So that's really good. And then the other side of the episode, is I mean, there's a little bit actually at the end. We should probably mention we do see Luke and Moira at the end, where they're getting the baby baptized.
Yeah,
and that obviously plays into the flashbacks.
Ties back in with all the flashbacks and the parallels going on in Gilead, but less important than anything else. I think it's more just to play in with the thematics and going, hey, absolve the baby of the sins of where it's come from in the past, and so fresh start.
And it gives it a sweet ending with the pianos playing, and it goes to thingy. But the other main plot though in the episode is we actually go back to Emily meeting up with her wife in person for the first time, because obviously they talked on the phone, and seeing her child for the first time, and delightfully awkward. It was interesting for me because she's staying at a hotel, and I get why it's not just we're just going to rush back into each other's arms, and it's been several years. The kid's 5 years, 6 years old or whatever now, but there was one line though where she says, "No, I'm going to stay at a hotel. I don't want to make things awkward for you." And she says, "Yeah, it is awkward, but who cares?" Like I thought they were then going to introduce her new wife or something because of what they said there, but there was never any.
No, I think it's just awkward because it has been so long. She's been on her own for however many years now. It's not that there's necessarily someone else. It's just that she'd probably given up hope.
Yeah,
and and just had got used to reality without her.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, if that is the case, then I do. Just, I mean, maybe it's foolish to hope for a happy ending in this show, but hopefully they.
It's not impossible. No,
they have their moment.
Work it out. Yeah.
Let them have their moment where they, because they end up cause she's going to go back to the hotel at the end, but she's like, I'll just stay for a little bit longer, and they just kind of sit there side by side. Let them have their moment. Let them have the romantic moment, and let the spark reignite or whatever. But a lot of this, of course, is just her kind of like seeing like the baby shoes and then meeting the son for the first time and kind of going along with it, and everything's very, it's very tepid, it's very, gentle, and like let's not rush into anything, like because the kid even says, I was told not to hug you until you're ready. This idea being that he's actually much better, like mentally prepared for this than she is. Like he's not been through it. I mean, as much as it's hard for a kid to understand all this and sort of process it, he's not been through what she's been through.
He's going to school, right?
Yeah, she's been through literal hell, and now she's dealing with the fact that she's out and she's here now. So I mean, I don't have a whole lot of specific like insight in these scenes as opposed.
I think I would just say, consistent with last season, the Emily stuff hits emotionally a lot more than anything with June ever has for me. I think I said at the end of last season that June was the least interesting character in the show, and I think that is changing this season with the dynamics of what she's doing. But here, like Emily, when she's breaking down reading the book and just can't even get through it, and the kid just takes over. That's landing quite, that's landing well.
No, it works well. I mean, I never agreed that June was the least interesting character.
No,
but...
you didn't. But hey, I wasn't on my own. People in comments did agree with me. They did. I think she's far more interesting this season than she was before. With the new dynamics at play, is really helping for me.
Yeah, that's fair. But no, this subplot was good. It did a lot of neat little emotional beats that worked really well. So, yeah. Because that's an interesting thing where, like, seemingly there is no reason not to just assume that we'll be married again. We'll both raise our son now, but it's just hard to kind of like jump into it.
They're different people now, essentially. After years of what they've both been through individually, they're not the same people they were before. When they were married together before. So it's just,
which doesn't mean they can't end up together again. It's just a case of they have to get to know each other again.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, it has to have baby steps. Yeah. Baby steps. Because I mean, it makes sense to me that even in 5-6 years that she's not found another partner, because having left your wife in this hellhole and having to think about that all the time,
you might feel pretty guilty if you try and find someone else.
I mean, you probably would feel pretty guilty, but even before guilt, I don't think she'd be in the mood to want to. If I don't think it would be on her mind. I don't think she'd be like, oh, I need to look for a partner, or I mean, it may happen by happenstance. Absolutely. It might, she might run into someone and meet someone.
Yeah, I agree. I think she definitely wasn't on the search for someone.
Yeah.
And if she had, run into someone who she had a connection with, that's when she probably would have felt guilty anyway.
Which might have been an interesting counterpart to June with Nick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. For all we know, there was moments where she had those feelings, and we'll learn about them.
Yeah, maybe. Which is interesting because we actually will get a lot more clear development in the show potentially now if we're getting more of this plot every couple of episodes.
I'm okay with that.
Because obviously she was in some flashbacks in season. I don't actually know what season it was, but she was in some flashbacks for an episode or two.
She was, yeah.
Yeah, and then
I think
obviously
it was season 2, but I'm not confident on that.
It may have been season 2 because I think it was when we met Emily again, early season 2. Because you remember Emily disappeared for most of season 1.
Yeah, it was when she was in the colonies, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Which makes sense. So there you go. That's Handmaid's Tale episode 4. So now we're still on board.
Yeah, I will say I think this might be the weakest episode of the 4.
Okay.
Even though it had lots of like the stuff between June and Fred and Serena, those scenes were fantastic, and the one scene with Janine, the big one, those were the standouts. I think a lot of the other stuff around the ceremony, was good. It was fine, but it was a lot less interesting than some of the stuff in the last couple of episodes.
That's fair. It's still really solid though.
Absolutely.
4 down. Presumably there's another 9. Assuming we're matching last year's episode.
Assuming we're matching last year, yeah.
No reason to think not, to be honest. But that's that. No Lawrence this episode, but I mean that's fine. I will rotate them in and out as we need them.
I'm sure we'll get back to him next time.
So yeah, let us know what you thought of the episode in the comments below. Like and subscribe, all that stuff. Get us on the Twitters at @me_fuzz for channel updates. Remember, the Handmaid's Tale reviews are brought to you by Cindy Palacios, one of our patrons. You can also sponsor shows over at Patreon, but you can also support us on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV for as little as $1 per month, and you get some bonuses, some extras, and get a nice warm fuzzy feeling in your stomach. But otherwise, that's us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV, guys. Have we got any vanilla?